Will they help, he asks? Yes, a surgical nurse assures him. Fighters in the battlefield will use them. They stop wounds bleeding about 50% of the time. Supplies here, too, are thin on the ground, but help comes from a sympathetic source, Libya, where the urgent demands of conflict are still fresh in their minds.
There is no one in the world feeling what they feel, these people, like Libyan people, you know?
You understand them?
Yeah, we understand them. Yeah, that's why we are here.
Dr. Rami Habib is a pediatrician here, and he is exasperated. A plan to acquire 2 ambulances has fallen through.
We don't want a lot of things. We just want feelings that somebody is supporting you, somebody is looking after you, somebody is thinking of you.
The provision of goods, says Mohammed, is haphazard. It needs to be coordinated. It needs to be efficient. Delivery needs to be targeted. On this mission, he visits several other medical clinics, places so protected the camera cannot follow. He's optimistic he can convince others to come here and give their support.
The purpose of this trip to show my colleagues in Saudi Arabia, in Europe, in the States, that's easy to come in and out. It's not that difficult. And for the past 2 days, we've been hearing bombs continuously. But so what? None of these reached us, so those conditions will continue. I think there is a lot of work on our side also to do.
Traveling back to the border, we look in at the progress of the secret hospital. Even without the necessary equipment, the triage room is already in use.
We believe that the Turkish border will be the main gate to Syria, the main gate of relief. That's why we appreciate the Turkish help, or at least giving a blind eye for us to work.
For the rebels in these border enclaves, the fight against the regime is in desperate need of a lot more than just ammunition.
Well, over to the U.S., the race for the White House is approaching its final stretch, and the Republican candidate for the White House appears to be riding on a new wave of momentum after a strong performance in his first debate against Barack Obama. Meanwhile, unemployment has dropped to its lowest in as many years at 7.8%. CNN's Jim Clancy asked if this will be a deciding factor in the November polls in an interview with CNN's political contributor, Paul Steinhauser.
CNN Washington. Paul, how do you read these numbers and the effect on the race?
You know, after what seemed to be a tough week, Jim, for the president and his re-election campaign, mainly because of that debate in Denver 2 days ago, these numbers are beneficial. They helped the president at the end of what was considered a tough week. Why? Most likely, it's the 8% figure. Remember, the Romney campaign, the candidate himself, has been attacking the president for months now, that the unemployment rate was above 8%. Now it is below 8% for the first time, as you mentioned, in over 3 years, at 7.8%. And that psychologically could help the president and hurt Mitt Romney. The Romney campaign's response to all this, though, is to point out that, hey, the recovery is still very slow and that a lot more work needs to be done. Jim?
You know, Paul, already within minutes after these numbers were announced, there were skeptics on the internet saying, oh, he can't debate, so, you know, fake the numbers. How, I mean, is it possible that these employment numbers can be manipulated?
Yeah, we've seen that conspiracy theory, as you mentioned, and it started just moments after those unemployment numbers came out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time Friday morning here in the United States. And, yeah, the big question is, can that happen or not? Well, smarter people than me from our CNN Money Unit say no. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is an apolitical group. They're not appointed by the president. And so the people who come up with these numbers do not have a say or a stake in the election, and they're apolitical. So it seems like this is just a conspiracy theory and nothing more than that, Jim.
Well, we have watched as President Obama has tried to bounce back after a poor performance. He's saying, in part, this is one of the things that he had to say.
When I got on the stage, I met this very spirited fellow who claimed to be Mitt Romney. But I know it couldn't have been Mitt Romney, because the real Mitt Romney's been running around the country for the last year promising $5 trillion in tax cuts that favor the wealthy, and yet the fellow on the stage last night, who looked like Mitt Romney, said he did not know anything about that.
All right, $5 trillion in tax cuts. Paul, how does he compute that?
Oh, that's a number that the president himself and the campaign have been touting for a while, but there's been a lot of pushback. In fact, one of the president's top advisors on CNN on Thursday night admitted that, well, maybe it isn't going to be $5 trillion. Romney himself says it's not true at all, and independent fact checkers have also said the same thing on that $5 million number. I guess the flip side, though, is that Romney's tax cuts, Romney says that the tax cuts will not inflate the deficit one bit. That can't be proven yet either, because we don't know how he's going to offset that tax cut with cuts in some of the deductions that a lot of Americans right now enjoy. But the politics here, Jim, is interesting. Listen, the president is saying that was not Mitt Romney that I faced on Wednesday night. That is a man that I've never seen before. Basically, the theme here is that Mitt Romney is making things up or flip-flopping on the issues, and that'll be the theme you're going to hear from both the president and his campaign as we go forward in the next couple of days. And the next debate between President Obama and Mitt Romney, which is about, in a week and a half, should be fascinating. We'll see, I would assume, a much more aggressive President Obama. Even his campaign has admitted it's time to change his strategy a little bit.
Now, Paul, Romney did backpedal this week on the famous 47%. Listen.
Clearly in a campaign with hundreds, if not thousands of speeches and question and answer sessions, now and then you're going to say something that doesn't come out right. In this case, I said something that's just completely wrong.
Go ahead, admit you were wrong, but the question is, does it really diffuse that point?
Yes, because that was a huge, I guess you call that story the September surprise when those tapes came to light a few weeks back. And you know what? A lot of people in the Romney campaign thought that Mitt Romney was going to be asked about the 47% during the first presidential debate, either by the president himself or by the moderator, Jim Lair, but it never came up. And I think the answer you heard Mitt Romney give on Thursday night was the answer he was prepared to give in the debate. Does this put it to rest? I think the Romney campaign would like to think so. I have a feeling you're going to hear a lot more of this, maybe in the next presidential debate, because the answer itself is probably not satisfactory for the president.
Well, the news continues here on GRTS after this break. Stay with us. Well, over to sports. Europe is bracing for two top showdowns in Spain and Italy between some of the biggest names in European football. On Sunday, La Liga leaders Barcelona entertained arch rivals and Liga champions Real Madrid, whilst in Italy, bitter-cross city rivals Inter and AC Milan slugged it out in the first glamour fixture in Serie A this season. AC Milan began the new season in jittery form after losing some key players in the close season. Here now are the top thoughts of Italian football journalist, Milan resident and CNN World Sport contributor Tancredi Palmieri.
Della Madonnina preview front page, there used to be the pictures of Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Samuel Eto'o, or maybe Mourinho and Ancelotti. Well, El Shaarawy and Coutinho. Seriously, what happened to the appeal of the derby Milan-Inter? Well, the hype and the charm are still here, but the Italian giants are rebuilding. The combined age of Stefano El Shaarawy and Philippe Coutinho themselves is 39 years, the same age of Inter captain Javier Zanetti. But no matter, the pressure from the fans still remains, and one loss this weekend would put Milan out of the Scudetto race, already out from the Scudetto race, as they would be 12 points behind the leaders of the table. This will be the 211th derby Milan-Inter, and after more than a century of official clashes, Milan have 75 wins to Inter 74. So before focusing on Italy or Europe, it would be best for the Milan rivals to think on who is now the lord of the city. Tancredi Palmieri, CNN, Milano.
Well, from sports, a reminder of our top stories before we go. Experts in the agriculture sector have validated a document detailing classification of the agricultural structure in the Gambia. Officials of Embassy of the Republic of China, Taiwan have celebrated the island nation's 101-year independence anniversary. The war of words between Ankara and Damascus has intensified following a Syrian army mortar attack on a Turkish border village, and French anti-terror police have stormed a suspected militant hideout in the city of Strasbourg, arresting a number of suspects. Well, you remember that you can monitor GRTS radio live